wish I could have shown you the demo of. No, I'm going to show it. But our artists and engineers have actually been working pretty hard. Surprisingly, they discovered a couple of bugs when we were working on it. Yeah, even this morning. So you have a very fresh build on this PC. So my name is Torfi, and Torfi Frans. I'm the senior producer for Eve. I recently took over as senior producer from Nathan, but I've been with the company since '99, and I've programmed and done graphics and led the art department and different stuff. So I'm cool. Is everybody in? Yeah? Okay. So I didn't do some fancy PowerPoint for you, and I don't have an elevator that I'm gonna use to show some fancy graph later, and I didn't wear a turtleneck, and it's a horrible presentation all in all. All I have is a single executable file from us. But first I wanna explain the Walking in Stations project. So back in '99, 2000, all we had was a big Word document printed out, a script for Eve that had the initial game design. And surprisingly, most of what you find within today was in there. Of course, it's grown a lot, but the core game design was already there. And we showed it to a lot of different people, and we had friends who were also in game companies and friends doing internet startups, etc. And we told them about this big space game that we were going to do, and it was going to be awesome, and we would have hundreds and thousands of people playing it. It would be sold all over the world, and we would become famous and rich. And there was 7 of us in an attic here in Reykjavík on Klapparstígur, and of course nobody believed us. And it's not until very recently that I don't have to apologize for being in the game industry. Why aren't you working in a bank like a normal person, making money? That's where the good money is. Yeah. So I was going to tell you about scope. So we showed the script to people and told them about this amazing space game where you can do everything and you can forge your own destiny, and it's non-linear, and it's a sandbox and everything. And people say, oh great, so you can go down the planets and shoot people and go into the space stations. No, you're just going to be in spaceships. And then they said, that's rubbish, and that's horrible, and you're never going to be able to sell that. And but we knew that as the small company that we were then, that we just didn't have the capacity to do all these things simultaneously. So we decided, okay, we're just going to do the space combat, the mining, the trading, and all that. Focus on that. Just make that fucking awesome, and then move on. Hopefully, once we get more money and more programmers and more people, then we'll move on. Also, when you took a look at the games that were going on back then in 2000 and 2001 and 2002, just the graphics, we were fairly happy with the way we managed to use the fixed function pipeline in DirectX 7 to render the spaceships, to make them shiny and look good. And even the characters in the character creation, we were happy with that. But the characters in character creation, we could only render one on screen. You know, if we had 2, the frame rate would drop down to 2 frames per second. So we had 2 options: just have one character rendering, or have crappy frame rate, or have crappy models of characters walking around. And aesthetically, we couldn't justify it. So, enough being said, we focused on spaceships. Now, 5 years later, after launch, we are bigger, thanks to you. We have a proven track record. We have a community of 250,000 people who play the game regularly, subscribers, and we have the capacity to deliver characters. Now, I actually don't compare us, I don't take all the science fiction games out there and look at their characters and think, oh my god, what if only our game could be as cool as this? No. We actually, we were all raised on the 80s science fiction movies and the great science fiction movies that we've made. And I always look to those films and Aliens and Battlestar Galactica and 2001 and all these Blade Runner, to these films for reference. And just to the great science fiction books we read out there. Because we've never wanted to be just good enough or just like the other games or anything like that. I think that a computer game is just a platform for our kind of vision of creating the biggest science fiction simulator out there. And I say science fiction simulator because our kind of long-term vision is that you don't just go into Eve to like shoot people in the face in a spaceship, but it encompasses all of the great things that you find within science fiction in films and in TV and in books. So, we're doing characters. Now, in the look of it as well, I'm sorry, this is... Yes? Oh yeah, she was going to introduce me.
I didn't want to interrupt someone who was so clearly on a roll. I'm actually here to talk about the logistics about what happens after his speech. As you know, we have the Walking In Stations demo room set up for everybody to get a first-hand look at what you're going to see here. There are a couple things I want you to ask. Please do not kill each other in a thundering herd to queue up to get into the demo room. There were a few sign-up sheets that people had a chance to get to early on this afternoon. Those people who signed up for the 2:30 and the 2:40 slot, you get basically jump the queue rights at 2:30, but everyone will be able to queue up after the speech. There are going to be 10-minute rotations to come through. We're asking you, please, as a courtesy, don't videotape or photograph what you're seeing in the demo station room. Here, you're videotaping and photographing. We know that. And that's all I have to say, and now I want to get off stage. Thank you.
Wait for it. Oh, there it is. So, films. There's also an interesting trend happening right now. Back in the days, a lot of people I knew went into games and computer game graphics because they wished that one day they would work at ILM or Pacific Images or that they would work in the special effects industry, in movies, in cinema and in episodes. And computer graphics for games was just a platform to get into the cinema. However, with the advent of the incredibly powerful GPUs that NVIDIA and ATI are making and just the computational horsepower that we have today and the stuff that's happening in real-time graphics today, I'm seeing more and more people coming from film and television into games. And we've, in the CCP graphics department, actually recruited quite a few of those people that previously hadn't been working on games but only on pre-rendered film, because that's where the exciting horizons are. Film effects are cool, yes, but it's kind of stabilized. But the great pioneering outback or frontier is in games today, because we are kind of defining a new generation of visual imagery for games. That being said, I want to talk to you a little bit about the technology that we're using behind Walking In Stations. With me here is Chris Doran. He's the founder and CEO of Geomerics. It's Cambridge, right?
Yes.
Yes, not Oxford. They always they get really pissed off when you mix those. But a Cambridge-based company that has specialized in creating real-time radiosity for computer graphics. It's one of the few technologies that we will be harnessing for Walking In Stations, although notably it's not running in our current demo, but long story, we have it running in-house. And real-time radiosity has been like the holy grail of real-time computer graphics for a long time. What it means is that light emitted from a source like here, not only shines on this surface, but it bounces from this surface onto this surface, onto this surface, and onto this surface. So if you have a single flashlight illuminating a white wall in a darkened room, the white wall will illuminate the rest of the room. Is that important, you might ask? Yes, it's very important, as you're going to see in Chris's demo. And without further ado, I'm just going to ask you to take it away, Chris.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to CCP for inviting me to this great event. Never quite given a talk in front of quite such a large audience before. I'm from Geomerics. Our first product is called Enlighten, and I've got a few slides here. These are sort of taken from a presentation I've given in a few places now, trying to explain the thought process behind Enlighten. What we're trying to do with Enlighten is give game artists and developers the same set of tools that film cinematographers take for granted, so they can start bringing ideas from film cinematography to game design. Now, this has been a fairly long-running theme in game design, but up until very recently, the technology has really made it very, very difficult, and games developers have to make an awful lot of compromises to get their games looking as interesting and exciting as films. One of the standard compromises is you just pre-bake the world completely, but then nothing really changes as people move around or things shadow each other or lights are turned on or off. You get this very sort of strange, undynamic effect to a world which isn't very exciting. What we're all about is bringing dynamic lighting to the game at real time, and also using the ability to change lights dynamically, giving that to the artists so they can spend a lot more time refining the look that they're after. And I quite often give a talk about borrowing lessons from film styles to try and show what we're trying to do. And in film, cinematographers are the people who impose a consistent look. They choose the colours, the colour palettes that are used throughout the film. And this has been a sort of a theme in film design since the 30s, really. Originally in black and white films, where they use subtle shadowing effects to create mood, and obviously more recently using colour as a way of controlling emotion, controlling the mood of a film. I've got a few sort of examples here. Film noir is a sort of classic type of lighting style that you can bring to a world. Sort of defines a whole genre. A couple of shots from The Big Sleep on the left there, Humphrey Bogart. Big Combo on the top right, showing the classic film noir effects of backlighting, shadowing, lots of smoke to set the mood. And bottom right is from Blade Runner, which is a more modern film that borrowed a lot of the style from film noir. So again, interesting backlighting, shadowing across the face, and smoke. A more recent example of how you can use these type of quite subtle effects to very great effect was the first Matrix film, which if you look at it again, you'll notice that they use a very different colour palette for when you're inside the Matrix and when you're outside it. Inside there's a sort of subtle greeny hues to everything, and a slightly sort of softer lighting. Outside everything's very harsh colours, bright highlights and the like, to create this sort of slightly unsettling effect that you really don't want to be out there. And that was sort of maintained throughout the first film. As you can see from some of the screenshots, that distinction got rather more muddled in later films in the trilogy, but that's pretty much true of most aspects of the Matrix trilogy, I think. One of my favourite examples is a film called Hero, which if you haven't seen, I thoroughly recommend. It's one where colour was used as an integral part of the storytelling. So Hero is set in a series of flashbacks set in China. It's directed by Zhang Yimou, who, if you saw the opening ceremony for the Olympics, that was also something that he directed. And each of the 4 stories that are told in flashback have a completely different colour scheme used for them. There's a very reddy, orangey one, top left, and set in autumnal colours, a white scene, an absolutely incredible blue scene, which it just has to seem to be believed, and then sort of final fight scene at the end. It's all set with a very green colour. And this colour is sort of integral to storytelling. It really helps set the mood. and they went to incredible lengths to achieve the look they were after with this film. So, for example, with the red scene, they changed from using Fuji to Kodak film just because the Kodak film had a slightly better red to it. Sort of amazing detail. And this sort of subtlety that film directors and companies like Pixar take for granted is something that we're only now going to start seeing in games, and it's amazing how much more immersive it makes the experience if you get these details right. There are lots of lessons from cinematography, and actually, internally, one of our favourite books is a classic book called Painting with Light, which was written in the 1940s by John Alton, one of the great cinematographers. And we use this as part of the product specification for Enlighten, taking lessons from that and bringing it to game design. Now, if anyone's interested, I've got a much longer talk here on cinematography and the similarities and differences between what's possible in games, but I'll cut this short now just to show you a couple of film clips that are sort of relevant to what we're trying to achieve. Here. If I start with a clip from Alien, one of the I'll make this. Thank you. One of the Alien was in many ways the first film to really define a style of science fiction film that's been pretty much copied by everyone since. Interior corridors, quite a lot of grime, lots of interesting dynamic lighting effects, and it's these dynamic lighting effects that are particularly relevant to us. Quite a lot of smoke as well, and interesting effects to take what probably, if you went and visited it live, would be a fairly crummy set. But by the time the lighting directors, cinematographers are finished with it, looks quite stunning on the screen. And a lot of these are sort of subtle effects just to lead the eye in various directions, flashing lights going off at various times, just to sort of create, in this case, a sort of disturbing atmosphere. And you see that as that builds up to this quite famous scene where Ripley first sees the alien. You see Ridley Scott's gone completely overboard with the flashing lights here. There's, for some reason, that spaceship has a sort of a light placed right behind a fan at just the crucial point there. But it all adds sort of stunning detail to it. And this is the sort of the level of creativity that we want to see in games, and which Enlighten can provide. A second example, again, smoke as well. It wouldn't be a Ridley Scott film without smoke. Well, you sort of recognise that sort of view from Eve. And another example, which is very pertinent to a theme that we've developed quite a lot internally in GMRX, and is particularly important to Eve, is this example from Blade Runner. So this is the Bradbury Building, a very famous building in Los Angeles. It's been used in all sorts of films, Double Indemnity, Marlowe, DOA, Chinatown, Wolf, Lethal Weapon. It's been used in any number of TV series. And when Ridley Scott turned up in 1980 to film Blade Runner, this building sort of fallen into a state of disrepair. And he had his heart set on using it for Blade Runner. And the associate producer tried to talk him out of it. He said it's been done in so many different films before. It's a cliche. Everyone will recognise it. Everyone knows it. And Ridley Scott just said, "Not by the time I finished with it." And you can see what he did. He added a lot of grime everywhere, which, in games terms, is sort of retexturing it. And he brought in these interesting dynamic lighting effects. The lights being shone in through the top of the atrium, and then these internal sort of neon lights flashing around to reproduce the effect. And what you've done here is taken a world that's sort of been textured in one way and made it look completely different. And we can actually radically transform the look of a game world just by a combination of retexturing it and relighting it. I think that's potentially extremely exciting for games with persistent worlds, and that you can go and revisit the same geometry over again, and it can look completely different. There's lots of interesting possibilities there. The Bradbury Building itself has a fascinating history, which a whole nother talk. Now, I'll just finish off with a couple of demos of Enlighten in use. This is on our own demo artwork. We haven't got any CCP artwork to show you yet, but you'll get a feel of where we're trying to go with this. I should apologise up front that usually our lead artist does these demos and he is far more proficient at them than I am, so hopefully this will go okay. This is a world that we created. I'll just let it play through and then talk about what's being done dynamically here. This is it's an interior courtyard. For this demo, we wanted to give a fairly architectural look to it, to give us something that distinguishes from what you see in a lot of games at the moment. This isn't a movie. This is actually all being played in real time on this laptop, and all of the lighting is being computed in real time. If I turn off Enlighten, that is the direct lighting input. There's just the sky and the sun. Enlighten computes all of the bounce light in all of the sort of subtle detail. And it's amazing when you start looking at these images and starting trying to compress them. There's incredibly subtle gradations of shadow across the object. And if you sort of put these images up side by side with a flat sort of global ambient tone, which is often the sort of best you can do in games, the difference is just incredible. Now, you can see the amount of extra sort of information that this brings to the eye, the extra immersion this brings. Another feature that Enlighten has, which is going to be particularly important for walking in stations, is the characters all pick up this bounced light. So instead of characters having this odd look that you often get in games where they sort of stick out from the scene, with Enlighten, they pick up all of the bounced light, they look completely like they belong in the world. And that adds an enormous amount to the way the immersion of the experience. Now, this world has all been textured in a very Moroccan style. I'll show you something that our artist did very quickly as a final demo, which was he went back and spent a morning retexturing that world to turn it into a sort of science fiction type interior. And this was a result of one morning's work. Same sort of theme as the Bradbury interior. Exactly the same geometry, don't need to play around with it at all, but just by being inventive with how you texture it and how you light it, you can create a completely different world. And as I said, this is all editable in real time, so if I fly to an interesting point, let's go back a bit. The geometry, and look down. I can turn off lights and play around with them. So, for example, if I can turn the sun off here, and just bring that right down, and I can go to these balls and recolor them. As you play around, I hope it comes across. You see that the whole of the world is instantly recolored, and that goes for all of the bounce light, all the internal reflections, and any character as well that's walking through that world will suddenly pick up whatever color you've chosen there. And this is really easy to do now. Previously, with existing technology, you'd have to set that particular configuration, press render, go away for half an hour or so, make a cup of tea, and come back, and you might get the result. With Enlighten, it's instantaneous. Massive benefits for the artists because they can spend a lot more time actually playing around and being creative, and a lot less time just waiting for their renderer to respond. And there's obviously all sorts of real in-game potential here for customizing worlds, being dynamic with them, being inventive with them. And this was, this interior was created, completely remodeled and retextured in one morning by our one artist at Geomeric. So I think you can begin to imagine the sort of interiors that will be created by CCP's artists, who will have a very strong, large team working on this for 9 months. So it's very exciting. And one other thing I should say to finish off with, EVE Online is going to be the first game where this technology is seen. There are other games using it, but none of them are going to be out before EVE Online. So not only will EVE Online have this amazing MMO feel to it, when walking stations come out, it'll also be right at the extreme edge of what's technologically possible in games on PC and console. So I'm very excited, and I hope you all are too. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Grace. It looks really cool. It also ties in. You saw how dynamic it was. He just puts the lights in there and he moves stuff around. And it's very important with an MMO that stuff just isn't baked, and that lamp was put there. It's just going to be there forever. Whenever we design a system for EVE, our kind of core philosophy is always about empowerment, empowering the user. So we are game players as well, and we don't like to have stuff like put down our throats or just like that. But you know what I mean. We want the freedom to define our own destinies and to create stuff within the games that we play. And we think that you should be getting that as well. So using geomatics is going to allow us not only for the artists at CCP to customize and create different variations of the environments, the promenades, the corporation offices, the bars, and the different the tattoo parlors and the different places that are within walking stations. You're going to be allowed to like change the lighting and set the mood and decorate it and kind of customize it for your own liking, and because it's a real-time system, we don't have to do any baking or pre-processing of it. But enough talk. Do you want me to fire up the client? Yes. So what I'm going to show you here is what we refer to as which one is it? No, there's nobody there. As a vertical slice. So, what's a vertical slice? It's a very hip word in the software industry today. It means that we take just, rather than showing you like a crappy demo of everything, we just have taken just a few things within walking in stations and polished it a little bit, and they're going to show that to you. Now, there's the disclaimer that this isn't even in alpha. This is stuff you're the first people to see this. This has only been running at CCP offices, and it's going to undergo a lot of QA and polishing and revision. And yeah, just so don't start complaining the minute you start seeing it. So, that's nice. So this is my character. Usually it looks like this. I'm coming out of warp, but I'm not really bothered with what's happening here in space, because we really want to go into a station. Where? Oh. Wait for it.
Docking request accepted.
Okay. So you've seen this before. Okay, very nice here. Oh, hang on, what's this? Go to quarters. Ah. Yeah. We didn't totally want to ruin the game experience for you. We had to leave in a bit of the, not change it completely. Ah. Okay, so welcome. If you're going to do this on the test machines, you can read this text here and be all very informed about it. But I'm not bothered with it because I'm a lead player and I know how to operate this. So now we are, nothing ever works here. We love being on the bleeding edge, just like Chris was talking about with the first game to use geomatics. And a lot of people would say, you know, you shouldn't expose yourself to risk, and you just should use only proven technologies and proven stuff. But it's never been our style, and that's why we had programmers checking in changes at like 9 a.m. this morning. So this is my captain's quarters. This is my pod, which has just been opened, and this is the pod exit room. Aha! See, my vitals are really good. So this is my personal space, and I have one within every station. So this is a Galente station, so these are Galente captain's quarters. Regardless of my own character's race, I'm going to get Galente's captain's quarters, because they don't just provide with those. And what's this? Oh. Protein delicacies. I've heard that they're very tasty. And long limb rose over here. That's very good. And here's a room I can like dress up in. It's supposed to have a mirror, but it doesn't have one yet. So should we maybe put some? Oh, what's this? Nice. As you can see, he's got some sockets on his back. That's from his pod. Let's change his hair. Oh. There you are. Bear with me. No, it's rubbish. It doesn't work. Yeah, just file a petition. Damn it. But look, see when it gets close to the wall. This is using screen-spaced ambient occlusion, which is a cool stuff that's used in a few games. See, as he gets closer to the wall, see, he's casting a soft shadow on the wall, and he casts a soft shadow on the floor. It's not the like razor-sharp, harsh shadow that you see in other games, but it's actually the environment is kind of reacting softly to stuff in it, and this is totally dynamic. This is a hologram of Kaldari Prime. It's kind of remember my origins, and this is a Kaldari Akura character, and that's all the costumes. Nice. Ah, yeah, this guy. Okay, so let's go to the promenade. So, this is the promenade, the big public space. It's supposed to be full of people, but I'm the only one on the server. Oh, there's someone. Down there. Oh, there. And there's some AI running a crowd simulation there behind. So in the promenade, I can go to these elevators and go back to my captain's quarters and to my corporation offices. I can watch the news. This is kind of nice. Oh. That does not look good. I hope it's not this station. And what else? What else can I show you? This is actually quite cool. See, notice how the character, I spin the camera around and I go to my character and I spin it around, but if I'm behind the character, the camera actually shifts to his shoulder and becomes an over-the-shoulder camera. Because I hate when you like zoom in and you're staring at somebody's back of somebody's neck. It's so stupid. So it actually like dollies back and then zooms in so you can like check out details and stuff. And we're walking. We realized very early on that walking on its own isn't that much fun. So in the promenade, and we're going to have more of these, we've got moving walkways. You see them down here, and they're like the ones in the airports. So you move faster with them. And this is interesting. Sorry if I'm going to use some exploits here. Okay. Is Oddur in the room?
Go to the first promenade.
Where is the bar?
Go to the old promenade, this one.
I want to go to the bar. Ah, very nice. Okay. Ah, see. So the promenade is kind of like a mall. It's an integral part of the station. So this is a Galentian promenade, and you see the style of the Galentian kind of engineering at its best. And these here are sockets. These sockets are rented out to players. So when Walking Stations opens and you can go in there, all you're going to see are your captain's quarters and these promenades, and basically nothing else, because no one has rented out a socket. So this is an unused socket. But here, somebody's actually rented out a socket and gotten a hold of a blueprint for a Minmatar bar. And they built the bar, procuring the resources that they needed to build the bar, and then rented out the socket and installed the bar at the socket. And you just have to pay upkeep for the bar. It's like renting a corporation office. So if you can't afford it anymore, or if it's a really popular, if it's Gita 4.4 and you can't really afford it, then you're just gonna drop it and somebody else is gonna rent it. And there's a limited amount of these sockets in each promenade. So the most popular stations are probably gonna be, oh. Does it look right? Oh, here we are. Yeah, sure. Now it's complaining that e-voice isn't enabled. This machine isn't hooked up to the internet, but the demo machines are actually hooked up to the internet that you're going to be able to use over there. And there you're going to be seeing that we have e-voice, and it's actually spatialized. So if somebody's standing on your left, you're going to hear him. And we had that exploit delete hack working a couple of days ago. I think it still works on the demo machines. So if somebody's talking, you actually see his lips moving. It's not full lip sync, but it's kind of like a French movie or a German movie, so it's probably going to be big in France and Germany. And what's also cool about it is that you've got voice fonts, which allow you to change your voice dramatically, and I strongly encourage you to try it. You can deepen your voice, and there are voice fonts that are like male to female and female to male, and I noticed Jade Constantine here just earlier, and I'm sure that he / she is going to have fun with that. So, where am I? Oh, here's the bar. Hello there. Nice. It's supposed to have some music. I checked with this bartender here. Got nothing here, man. There was a party the other night and they drank the place empty. Okay, that's typical. Okay, I'll go upstairs at that now. So he's an NPC, he's an NPC bot, and if you own an establishment like this, you can actually rent NPC bots. You can rent a bartender, or you can rent someone else, an exotic dancer or someone else, and place them in your own establishments, and you can author the dialogue trees for the avatars. So you can have the avatars accept items or money, and give items or money, and you can customize your little kind of state graph, so that you could, for instance, have this guy ask for money and he would give you whiskey in exchange. Or you could have him ask for a blueprint and he would give you, I don't know, a title. So that's nice. So, what's happening here? There. Okay. This dancer was actually dancing like a couple of minutes ago, but it seems like there's an error in the build. She's supposed to dance, like I encourage you strongly to check that out in the build. He's liking it, at least. And he. And this guy. There as well. This is a kumak, I believe. It's actually a placeable object, and all of these tables and chairs are yeah? Sure. Okay, let's distribute it. Yeah. I really can't understand why this happened. It never, ever had an issue with this. Yeah.
Connecting.
Okay, here we are. Stop it. Stay still. There you are. And lead out with music. That's nice. Pay my commands. There we are. Sorry? Okay, so it's missing some people. Yeah, his hair changed. No. Stay put. Ah. So, what are these then, you might ask? These, I mean. So these are examples of the minigames that you can play. This one is called Sec Wars. And so what are these minigames? These are tactical strategy games that you can play within walking stations. And this table is actually just an object that's placed there, and you can buy it and install it at your own bar or put it in your captain's quarters. And what this one has is you can play against the AI, or you can play against other characters. And if you're playing against other characters, you can bet on it. Right now you can only bet ISK, but we're hoping to be able to make some sort of contract, so you can put your ship on the line, or your clothes, or something else. And okay, let's start. So maybe some of you have seen a game like this, or a game eerily similar to this. So it's about conquest, and we are red. We are the red units, and my quest is to kind of conquer the whole territory. Now, my areas are each area that of my color that has 2 or more tiles adjacent to each other gets a base. And if I have a base, the base accumulates income, and once I've got 10 ISK or whatever, I can afford a unit. So these are my units here. These are just basic kind of foot soldiers. I'm gonna conquer this hex here, and see, now I've got this area here, and it's gonna give me then an income of 4 for each round, and my unit costs 2, and it's a soldier, and I'm gonna just go in and try to win this. Actually, didn't get much sleep last night, so I'm really worried that I'm gonna totally lose myself in playing this game, because I'm really obsessed with winning it. There. So I merge these, and I'm gonna really screw the AI over. Damn you, AI. The important thing is that we don't take the AI and connect them all together. And turn. Oh, okay. So the units that are spinning are my units that I can actually move. So I can also drag a unit on top of another unit and upgrade it. Ah, that's nice. A mech. And with a mech, I can conquer other units or kill other, like, characters. And then I'm gonna go here and do like this, and maybe this. I'm gonna end my turn. Okay. Go back here, here. Okay, it's tricky. I actually can't promise you that I'm gonna win this game. I set the AI to very stupid, so it shouldn't be that hard. Can get a bit tricky. Okay, I'm just gonna upgrade this. I'm gonna show you the fancy units. It's got a nice walker. This walker here, he can kill a mech, but the mech can't kill a mech, and so on. But I'm using the mech to jump here, and then I'm gonna come right here, and upgrade this one, and connect these two. See, that's very nice. But they might cut me off. Okay, it's cool. And I'm actually winning. This is nice. Well, you get the general gist of it. I'm not going to go through the entire round of this. You see, I've been playing for 3 minutes. This particular round has been playing for 2 minutes. And in the graphs here, you can see the progression of how each player is doing. I'm red. I'm not doing that well. Green is doing pretty well. And I can actually undo. And if I really give up, oh, that's nice. Oh, here it is, yeah. The help menu, very important. And I'm gonna go full retard and see if I can upgrade this unit and end my turn. Oh, AI player number 2 wants to surrender. Wimp. Okay. And I'm gonna put up a base here that's gonna protect my tiles, then he can't attack my tiles. And I'm gonna upgrade this mech here to the uber lead jet, and that kills everything, and it kills my enemy bases. But it costs 54 ISK each round, and I only make 33 ISK each round. So the next round, all of my units are going to starve. They're dead. So my greed got the better of me. But I'm not going to play the whole thing through, but it's a brilliant game. I can totally, we've actually been playing this game a lot, and it's really impacted and hurt our developers' ability to program demo, because it's like highly addictive, and even playing against the AI is good, but against another human player is just plain scary. Okay, see, I'm just gonna, no, let's play this one. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I give up. So, I give up, I'm humiliated, the table closes. What else? Walk down here. So that's basically our vertical slice of walking in stations. What I didn't show you, and what's going to be in there, is of course character customization. It's crafting, it's manufacturing of these environments, it's the customization of these environments, the customization of the lighting, and the customization of the characters, the placement of props, and the renting of it. I didn't show you the corporation offices, which have both meeting rooms where you can have where you like can meet other corporation members, and a foyer where you can invite basically everybody and rent an NPC bot and pre-program that with some recruitment talks like, hi, welcome to our corp, and here is some spiced wine, have a nice day. And because you could have that bot give stuff to people, and with the combination of bots, if you've got corporation offices and bars in many different stations, you could essentially create small missions where bots give stuff to people and other bots require that same stuff, or you could just have them do the dirty work for you, talk to the noobs and have them like, so you can't be bothered with like talking to the noobs and having them do like crap for you and just have them talk to the bots. And one thing I should mention is, as with the game itself, we are building this with you. So we're going to release this. We're going to alpha it and beta it, and we're going to release it, and we're going to monitor it very closely, and monitor, of course, the forums and your reactions to it, and the play styles and the patterns. And this will grow, and this will. So you don't have any combat in here, and you don't have any. There's a lot of things that you don't have in here right now, but we only see it as the stepping stones in just making EVE this science fiction simulator extraordinaire that we want it to be, but we want to do it gradually because we don't want to totally upset the balance of the game. Flying in space, or FIS as we call it today, is still the most important part of EVE. It's where all of the gameplay happens. It's where the dynamic balance cannot be disturbed. So I've talked about this before. If I could have a teaspoon in here as a noob and then run up to some alliance leader and then chuck his eye out with a teaspoon and kill him, would invoke the teaspoon effect, which essentially would totally upset the whole balance of the game. So that's one of the reasons that we're like moving it into this gradually. Now, can I do something? I totally recommend you get this menu here. It's really cool. You can like get macros and you can like skill up your character and do stuff. Go back to the captain's quarters. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I think that's the end of my my demo, and we have a few minutes. I managed to make it small enough. A few minutes for Q&A. I don't know how you were supposed to do this. Ian probably has an idea. What people do, like queue up or raise their hands. Yeah, sure. Okay. So Q&A. Any questions?
No, it's okay.
You had music there that people respect. Is it still a case of in-game music supplied only, or can, say, out of EVE on internet radio stations be used as the background?
Sorry, the music?
Music, is it fixed from the internal, or can there be an external playlist or an external source?
The jukebox. Currently, it's fixed for in-game client, but we are looking at playing back different files and playing back MP3s, but we can't commit to it right now. But that would be part of an expansion that wouldn't be walking stations, but probably the next expansion that we do. The karaoke expansion, right? Thank you, Nathan.
I really don't feel comfortable with the third-person look and the shoulder look,
Right.
Because in space you explain it with the camera drones. So obviously I don't have camera drones here with my avatar. Why don't you give us first-person view?
It might be nano drones. It's the future, but
It makes me really feel uncomfortable to watch an avatar walk instead of being immersed in the avatar.
Okay. I'm sorry for that, but be noted that this is a working alpha. It's a prototype. We actually, in our initial designs, we plan to have you mouse wheel and then scroll and then pop into your head. If you like take the camera like this, it's probably going to be like that. It's just going to undergo some user testing, and we will figure out what's the best feel for it.
Thanks.
Your concerns are noted.
Hands?
I remember last year at Fanfest, there was, of course, you demoed what you had on emulation as well. And there was, ideas were being tossed around, such as, standings having effect and playing certain animations, so that if you had a high standing, people would look at you revered or whatever. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. So, like I said, this is still a vertical slice, and we haven't integrated the look-at system, where you actually, if somebody enters a room and if he's of a high standing or stature, your character's focus or gaze is shifted towards him, and the reactions of avatars are implicitly controlled by things as standings in game, or for instance racial attributes. That is still the case. It's on our Scrum backlog, but it's not in this vertical slice.
I was wondering, is this planned for just Empire high-sec systems, stations, or is this going to be low-sec? And if it's low-sec and zero-sec, it's outposts. If you're trapped in an outpost that's recently been taken over by another alliance, if you're in another alliance's outpost, will you still be able to have your bar? Are you still just kind of stuck in there with your stuff and you can't leave and come back?
It's a good question. I can't give you the perfect answer to it. But what happens if you have a bar fitted, for instance, in a station, and for some reason you can't have it fitted anymore? It's just going to be chucked to your hangar along with its fitting. So it's like a fitted ship, and you can put it on your cargo and just fly somewhere with it. The outpost issue, we will burn that bridge when we come to it. Any more?
About the graphics technology, will it also be ported over to the space section, all those like the radiosity technology and stuff like that, or will it just stay in emulation?
The radiosity will probably not be moved over to the space section, because in space lighting is pretty hard or harsh, and it makes sense to have harsh shadows. And we feel that the improvements that we did with the ships in Trinity are sufficient for the time being. We are in our future expansions, we're going to be focusing on making the planets and the nebulas and world objects look better, and then move on to walking stations. So you're probably not going to be seeing radiosity lighting within space. And well, the only thing that actually bounds radiosity lighting in space would be the planets, but there would be different methods for that, and we wouldn't require the full system that Chris and the guys at Geomerics have developed to make that happen.
The infamous 10 ton hammer video ended with a scene where you went down to the hangar and saw your ship. Is that sort of still in game, or has that been dropped?
Well, going to the hangar is not a high priority right now. So what we have is we have a ton of things that we want to do, some of which are half implemented, some are more implemented, some are more fully implemented, like this one. And currently we felt that going to your hangar, unless there was a game design reason for it other than seeing your ship, didn't fully justify putting a lot of resources in it, because it's fun going into your hangar once and admiring your ship and oh my god, that's so big. But then after you've done it once, are you going to do it again? Maybe once you get a new ship, but with the kind of work that goes into building an environment, we would prefer them to be more reusable than that. So it's not high on the priority list, but I can't tell you whether it's going to be in or not in the first release.
All the items you showed, like the props, are they all going to be player manufactured?
Yes.
And so is it going to be like a possible profession as a person who creates all of these stuff?
Sure. And you might get some items are more rare than others, and some might be NPC drops, and it's all just part of the existing item system within EVE. So yeah, for sure.
What time do you have to finish, Torf?
In 1 minute.
Okay. Next question. Over there, someone. Okay. The man with the funny top.
The games you're going to be implementing, will they be only the strategy games, or are you going to bring in things like poker and that?
Good question. We had poker running a couple of months ago inside this Texas Hold'em poker, but it didn't have fancy graphics, but it was really cool. We changed the racial card. It wasn't spades and aces, it was like Amar and Minotaur. and it was quite cool. But we might just as well put it in there, or rename it, or reskin it. What I feel important about, well, poker is a strategy game, isn't it? What I like about having strategy games in there rather than reflex-based games is that Eve is a thinking man's game, and it's kind of slow-paced, and kind of, yes. No, I mean you put a lot of thought into your actions, and also I prefer to have multiplayer games in there rather than single player, because the games you play in there are essentially a way to bring people closer to each other and to have fun without having to go just into 0-0 and have your capital ship blown up.
Okay, Torf, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.